And there came a day unlike... Wait, no, that's been done. Who knows what evil lurks in... No, that is that other thing. What has yellow skin and rights? Forget it. You're listening to Panelology. Excelsi, oh damn it.
Welcome to episode 250 of Panelology. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian.
Holy shit.
250! Wow!
Jin had every intention and hope of joining us today and got caught up on a bunch of stuff. And then her computer decided to implode.
Yes.
So while she deals with an error screen that has had 2 minutes and something seconds left on it for the last 20 minutes, she has told us to go on without her, unfortunately.
To press onward, yes.
Yes. The show must go on.
Indeed.
And this week is jam-packed.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But first we have a very important announcement.
We do.
We are joining a podcast network. Have joined, in fact. The Certain POV Network. This is where one of my other podcasts, the Rob Thomas No Not That One Robcast, has been since the middle of last year. Guest host Meg's Judging Book Covers also recently joined the network. And there are a bunch of other fun, I'd say generally nerdy, pop culture focused shows. Lots of video games, movies, TV, books, some other comics podcasts too.
Yeah.
So we are excited to be there and to join the family and want to thank them for having us.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Now we're gonna, earn our keep by talking about a whole shitload of comics.
Yeah, we got a lot. A big part of that is because I didn't make last week, so I've got several that I'm bringing with me forward here.
It was already a heavy week, and then Brian added 7 more books.
All of which I want to talk about because they're like number ones or they're good, yeah.
By the way, welcome back, Brian.
Thank you, yeah.
Thanks again to Tim for stepping in and recording with no plans to do so and having not read anything in a while and getting caught up on at least a few books for that.
Yeah, I got work sidelined, yeah.
Yeah. Sidelined, that's what it's called when they drop a piano on you, right? A metaphorical piano?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Daffy Duck is sidelined as he accordions up and down from the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's what we call it.
Future state, hard pivot. We are going to begin with Robin Eternal #2 in the halcyon days of 2025. This is written by Megan Fitzmartin with pencils by Eddie Barrows, inks by Aber Ferreira, colors by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Pat Brousseau. Darcy is one of my new favorite characters.
Darcy is amazing. Like, she has to be in damn near everything that's Tim related now.
Yeah, clearly I made a mistake by not reading We Are Robin back when that was happening, which I'm going to have to rectify. But I do hope that when Infinite Frontier starts up, that she is a staple.
I do also.
She is a delight, and I like her and Steph working together while Tim trips balls.
And beats ass, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim got a hold of some juice that wasn't supposed to be used on people.
Yeah. This I think is the comic book equivalent of, well, yes, gasoline is alcohol, but not the kind a human should drink.
Right. Yes.
This goes in robots. It's robot gas.
Robots. Thanks, John Hodgman. Robots.
Anytime.
Uh,
There are far worse people to be compared to.
that's fair. That's very fair. Yeah.
I don't know that I've got a whole lot more to add to this. We do learn that this has a direct through line to the Batgirl's backup.
It does. So I want to. I'm gonna take a moment here because this is a good place to do it. There were about 4 books, and don't hold me to that number. There were several books this week that really we kind of got the direct feed into exactly how they tied in, or where we now know where they plug into another story that people are involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more realistic to like sit down and actually draw a timeline and put these books, or individual stories at least, in sequential order.
Correct.
And I suspect that will continue through the month.
Yeah. I think so. Like, yeah, we know specifically where Steph's incarceration fits in now. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this. I'm not sure why they think she's a traitor based on what's going on here.
I'm wondering if it has something to do once she's inside. But we'll see.
Or when Tim meets her here, she's like already out of the game, so to speak, and has lost that eye already. So maybe it's something that predates this issue.
Could be.
Yeah. Next up, in 2027, we have Dark Detective. The main feature here is written by Mariko Tamaki, with art by Dan Mora, colors by Jordi Belair, and letters by Aditya Bidikar. This is probably my favorite issue of this book so far.
Okay.
Like, I feel like each issue of Dark Detective gets better and better. I'm also a sucker for superheroes being like, yeah, billionaires can just go fuck off. I need more of that.
So what was it about this one that you like so much?
I think we are established now into kind of this timeline for Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
One, like, I enjoyed the seeing, okay, there's the mystery around why he died and how Batman and all that. But that is prologue to me. I think there's at this point, the more active surveillance state questions are the focus of this book.
Yeah.
I also really, really, really loved seeing Bruce and the next Batman meet.
Yes. Yeah, that energy between them was really, really good. And I think what surprised me the most about it was Bruce's reaction, right?
Yeah,
But specifically because this Batman is not someone that he raised as a bat person.
well, and a step further, like, the extension of that is anyone who he raised as a sidekick. And we're going to leave Terry McGinnis off the table for a moment, because Terry McGinnis is a separate set of circumstances, and Bruce is much older at that point.
Yeah.
Anyone else who has been Batman who was raised and trained by Batman, whenever they see, oh, Bruce, you're alive, their response is, here's the suit back.
Yeah.
And there's no intimation that will happen here.
Oh, no.
In fact, we know it doesn't, because 35 years later, who's still Batman?
Yeah.
Okay, 13 years later. That was exaggeration. And that puts Bruce in a position where he, like, has this moment where he feels like he's looking in the mirror, but it's not him looking back, and, like, having to deal with someone else carrying on his legacy who he has not just no ties to, but because he has no ties to, really has no authority over.
Right. Like, he kind of can't tell him to stop.
Yeah. It sort of changes that, oh, Batman and Bruce are dead narrative, like, down a thematic line into, okay, now I, as Bruce, am actually having to come to terms with no longer having this specific life.
Yeah. And specifically, like, the new Batman, right? As far as he's concerned, Batman, like, I hate to call it the Bruce Wayne Batman, the OG Batman, right? And Bruce are both dead.
Yeah.
Right? So he thinks this is just somebody else kind of dressing up as the Bat.
Yeah.
And his line to him is, "Stay home tomorrow night." Bruce is like, "Yeah, I pretty much invented that line."
Yeah, like it's I have never seen a version of this interaction. Not that someone else becomes Batman every week, but
Sure.
in all the versions of this interaction we've seen, like, this is never the way it plays.
Well, Bruce is kind of, in a way, treated as the imposter Batman here,
Yeah.
and that's what's, I think, very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also, I think, reinforces that time does move forward, right? Like,
Yep.
if the status quo is always eventually Bruce will be Batman again, the story where, no, stay home tomorrow, old man, that becomes inherently something that is moving forward.
Yeah. And again, the way he's treated by his landlord's daughter, where she like doesn't care who he is or what, she's, he's just somebody that's causing her problems right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is also great. I like that character a lot. I hope we see more of her somewhere.
I,
And the landlord too. Like, he's
yeah. Oh yeah. she is right on the line of being like too angry as a character, but they're holding that right to the line. I think. Yeah.
I think I read a certain amount of just tired of the bullshit in it.
Oh yeah.
That makes it an important distinction.
I agree.
Then we have Grifters, which is written by Matthew Rosenberg. Its art is by Carmine de Giandomenico. Colors are by Antonio Fabella, and letters are by Endworld Design. I really stand by, I think, the connection I made last time, where this is just sort of dirtbag anti-hero Hawkeye in the best possible way.
Yeah, that's very fair. And this time we even have a purple costume as part of the mix.
It's
so
true.
How about that? I love every bit of this except for one revelation.
Yeah, I mean, boy howdy, apparently the Fox family does have some kind of grudge specifically with Grifter.
Yeah.
And I imagine we will see that explored in one of the Gotham books, if not Batman, then something coming forward.
But which I mean, we know, but something has obviously changed all of the Fox's personalities. Yeah.
But I think this is the first time where we really see this is true of Luke.
Oh yeah.
Or the extent to which this is true of Luke.
Correct.
I did not see that coming.
I did not either. Yeah, I can't say I hate kind of the reversal that they're giving the two brothers, though.
No, I am here for that. I think it's going to make for some really interesting storytelling, and I cannot wait for the next Batman digital series that starts sometime this month, I think.
I think it's right at the end of the month. Yeah.
I think its physical issues start coming out in April.
Yeah, and I love this was a very, very Grifter ending as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. I
don't know why I like Grifter as much as I do. I really can't explain it, but here we are.
That lovable asshole character, yes.
Apparently. Then we move on to Future State Teen Titans #2, also in 2027.
Boy.
Written by Tim Sheridan, with pencils by Rafa Sandoval, inks by Julio Ferreira, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, and letters by Rob Lee. This is still, I think, the piece of Future State singularly that I am just the most excited about seeing how it blows back into the current timeline.
Yes. So much so. Oh my god, I love just about everything they've done with these characters. And when I say love, like, I love it from a storytelling perspective. Some of it I absolutely hate, but I love it.
Yeah.
I love that I hate it.
I don't think we learned in the last issue who the 4 horsemen all are. We see them in this issue.
Yeah, we do.
I only recognized 2 of them. I recognized Wally, obviously, and I recognized
Roundhouse.
Yes, Roundhouse.
Yes.
Do you know who those other 2 are?
The one that's War, that has the war helm.
Yeah.
I swear I know that, but I can't for the life of me. I can't put my name on who it is.
That's the one
I'll
in, like,
tell you who it
blue
almost-
armor with a T on the chest.
I'll tell you who it almost looks like. It almost looks like Ravager, which was Deathstroke's son
Yeah.
that died. I don't know. Or Thunder. And then the other one is very, very much looks like some sort of demon from Trigon's dimension.
Gotcha.
Like it's got the 4 eyes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of that. Yeah. But yeah. So this one very, very clearly ties into Flash. Right?
Yeah, which we got that in issue 1, but
We did.
this issue also tells us the other direction this ties.
Yes.
Past
Which is
Shazam.
Shazam.
Well,
yeah.
I think we suspected that. I'm actually talking about further in the future. But we'll get there in a second. I think we suspected Shazam already.
We did.
But this absolutely confirms it. But
yeah, this is one of those that plugs in kind of a missing piece to a couple of, and I say missing piece in that, like, timeline wise, right?
What's the other far future book that this feeds? It's Black Adam.
Oh, right, yes.
Because Raven takes the 4 Horsemen into her.
Right.
This is their plan, that Raven will take the 4 Horsemen into her.
Right. Yes.
And then that Shazam will lock her in the Rock of Eternity and guard her there.
Yep.
But when she takes them into her, all she can feel is unkindness.
Right. The unkindness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Remember when I said it looked like Raven?
Yeah.
Yeah. Called it.
Well, we called it. We called it in solicitations. And the last time when we got to that issue, we were like, maybe we were wrong. We were not wrong. We just did not have all the context.
Correct.
We were right, and then we were wrong, and then we were right again.
Correct. Yeah, the other thing that we get, I guess you could say some clues about, right, is Red X. Like, I don't think it's Clown Hunter now.
No, it's probably not. Like, to some degree, the lettering even gives that away. Because Clown Hunter is lettered in a very specific, like, all lowercase way.
Yeah.
And
just from some glimpses of what we see, it does seem to be a Caucasian person.
Yes.
Right? Brown hair, we get that, but that's about it. I spent some time thinking about, like, who the hell could this be?
Almost like a Reddy Brown, too.
Yeah. You know the only person that I came up with that it might be?
Who's that?
Hank Hawk.
Dove? Oh, Hawk.
Yeah. Don Hall was Dove. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, I see Hank and Don, Hawk and Dove. Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could maybe say he doesn't seem like as big and jacked as Hank usually is drawn, but I could see that maybe. I also wonder, I don't know, I part of me wondered if it wasn't Miguel from Dial H, but it sounds like Miguel is dead.
Yeah.
It was a little ambiguous in the language, just enough to make me wonder.
Right. Well, and, maybe it's... we saw Shazam be split, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's this thing where it's a character from the H-Dial that Miguel... So it's like a version of him.
Well, but in Dial H, like, part of that book was about Miguel being split, too.
Right, yeah. Yep.
All of this is to say, the thing we have not talked about yet is maybe don't hack the H-Dial to use as your own 1980s Ouija board.
Wow. Yeah, that clearly did not go well.
Not the best judgment, kids.
No. Can I say that in this book, I continue my absolute love of Crush, though?
Crush and Cybeast.
Cybeast. See, Cybeast is one of those that, like, I hate, but I love.
But in that moment where Corey calls Dick Deathwing, and Cybeast starts to correct her and say, "Don't you mean Dick Stroke?"
Yes. I would have called him Dick Stroke. and then gets interrupted.
Yeah.
Yes. And it, by the and point in fact is interrupted by the cyborg half of himself.
Yeah.
Yes. Grow up, man. Yes.
But yeah, Crush also got a booyah in here, so I will allow it.
Yep. Yes. And just those other new Titan names are just Gorilla Greg and Chupacabra and Brat Girl.
Brat Girl. All of them are so good.
I know. Oh, I love it all.
Yep. Green Lantern. Future State Green Lantern number 2. Moving forward to 2035. We have 3 stories here. We have the continuation first of Last Lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
This was written by Jeffrey Thorne with art by Tom Rainey, colors by Mike Atiyeh, and letters by Andworld Design. And this is John Stewart basically out planning and out thinking the Khund army that definitely has something to do with the Red Lanterns.
Yes.
The third story in this nods to the Khunds have taken over the Red Lantern homeworld or something like that.
Yep. And can I just John Stewart was very, very Batman in this.
Yes.
Yes, in his thinking through the plan and having what he needs in place to react.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did it 35 minutes ago.
Yep. And we find out who their god in red is.
Yep. Which I was not prepared for.
No, but it makes absolutely perfect sense.
The god in red hair, maybe. It's Orion.
Yeah, it's Orion. Yeah. And then what had to be my favorite story in this one, though?
Oh, you're talking about the second one?
I am.
Yes, I adored it. Like, to me, this is one of the best stories to come out of Future State.
100%. So the second one is Dead Space. The writer is Josie Campbell. Artist is Andy Tong. Colors by Will Quintana.
Mm-hmm.
And letters were Dave Sharp. This is Teen Lantern, Kelly Quintler. Or is it Quintler? Quintella.
Kelly Quintella.
Kelly Quintella, yes. Teen Lantern. At the kind of the end of the Young Justice run, right? We find out that she was going to be brought to the Guardians because they didn't approve of the gauntlet that she had, and there were questions about it, and how had she hacked into the OA, the power battery, and so they bring her, and her attitude in dealing with the Guardians is just the best.
I particularly enjoyed which Green Lantern was it who was definitely not a Pokemon?
Kilowog. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Kelly is going to be a main character in the Green Lantern book, but I would also 100% pick up a second title that was just Josie Campbell writing Kelly doing her thing, because, just the best.
Yes. Yeah, they tell her that they're going to have a lantern, one of their biggest and best lanterns, escort her, and she's like, "Who, Mr. Stewart? That weird dog thing that I've been told is not a Pokemon?" And the response, "No, are you talking about Kilowog?" No, they were thinking much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were thinking Mogo.
Mogo, the living Green Lantern planet. Yes.
I love Mogo.
Yes. And Kelly and so Kelly is essentially on Mogo, right?
Yeah.
And they are traveling to a location where they can find out maybe where her gauntlet came from.
Yeah, they're going to meet with Joe Mullane.
Yes, correct. And on the way there, they have to pass through an area of dark space, right? Which is no big deal. They're going to get through it, and, Mogo can shine green light, and, everything's going to be fine. Except while they're in the middle of it is when the power battery happens to go dead.
Yep. So Mogo can no longer tap into it.
Correct.
Kelly's gauntlet still has a charge.
Correct.
But then also, I'm just gonna say nightmare monsters start crashing down from space. And Kelly, who is afraid of the dark, is not having it.
Nope. So yeah, so she ends up having to deal with some things on her own for a little bit, but then figures out by using a very trace amount of power from her battery, she can animate localized parts of Mogo, like a plant of Mogo,
We've
and he
been
can talk to her.
we've been doing our best not to recap these, but this is just like such a
Yeah.
really great character piece. All these little
Exactly.
beats
Yep.
give her so much to do and let her be like funny or serious or whatever in ways that she didn't really get space to in Young Justice.
Yeah. Yes, her personality is amazing, and I love it.
Yeah.
But essentially, the important part I think is we're going to get to in this is, so essentially, I'm guessing the whole time that the main power battery is dead, it's Kelly on Mogo, lost in this dark part of dead space.
Yeah, that's definitely how I read it. These Green Lantern backups are interesting to me. Like this one, but also the first issue's backups with Guy and with Jess.
Jessica. Yeah.
All of these set up what could be their own mini series in their own rights, and we just get the smallest taste of each of them.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: you could, if you go with the idea that Kelly is going to be trapped on Mogo in this dead space the whole time the battery's dead, right?
Yeah,
you could write a whole series of that.
Yeah,
of what happens. Sure.
Then we get our last story.
Mm-hmm.
This is called Recon. It's written by Robert Venditti with art by Dexter Soy, colors by Alex Sinclair, and letters by Steve Wands. This is Hal, I guess, finally getting off his ass to figure out what's gone on with the Green Lanterns. Going through space and just seeing all these different ways the universe has changed, which Tim and I talked a little bit about this last week. The idea that we both feel, even though we've got very different taste in Green Lantern stories, we both feel like it's time for something more grounded, that's less about cosmic law and intergalactic war and all of those things, and less mythologized.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the details this issue gives us build this world where, like, okay, or this universe where it's like, okay, the Green Lanterns are not going to be like super welcome in space and aren't going to have the resources to really police space. So they're going to have to spend more time on Earth and more time developing casts of characters on Earth.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that this one sets up that gives us is, as Hal is like flying through different parts of space to get to where he's going, we get kind of glimpses of some of these different worlds. Like you mentioned, the Coons, right?
Yeah.
Have taken over, I guess it's Atrocitus, or is it Atrocitus? I think that's the name.
Yeah, that's Atrocitus.
Yeah, and so they're worshiping the god in red. We see an attack on him by Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern, right, as he's going. We see a bunch of manhunters, like the robot manhunters, right, attacking him. We see a giant mechanical squid thing, something. I don't know.
Well, there's even a reference to I think it was in this one. It was one of these three stories, to the core having made some sort of sacrifice for peace and it's starting to erode.
Yeah.
And I really get the vibe that the different beats that this alludes to are probably going to be the things that do happen going forward pretty quickly in continuity to sort of contract where Green Lanterns are actually able to go. And then Hal finds Joe Mullane, who yells at him for only now getting off his ass to do anything. And I love it. I love that energy. I love Joe. I need more Joe in everything, please.
Yeah. Well, and this one made me, I mean, especially reading it right after the Teen Lantern one, right? And the fact that they were going to talk to Joe, reminding me that Joe's ring is a little bit different.
It is.
in that it doesn't have to get its charge from the power battery.
Yeah, it's self-charging.
Correct. Which I think is a very curious thing with the gauntlet that Teen Lantern has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which also seems to still have a charge.
Right.
Yeah, right?
I think there's no way it is a coincidence that both of these characters have specialized rings that do not need a central battery.
Correct.
Also, we didn't talk about it, but the Guardians are very, very different visually in Dead Space than they are traditionally.
Yep.
I don't know how caught up you are on Legion of Superheroes yet, but we see some Guardians in it in a recent issue too. Not the future state, but the ongoing. And they are wildly different there as well, and we've learned recently that those aren't really the Guardians. I don't think they look the same as these, but clearly there's something going on in the planning of like future Guardians of Oa history.
Yep.
Moving on to Justice League number 2. Speaking of how great Joe Mullane is, our main feature here is set in 2040, written by Joshua Williamson, with pencils by Robson Rocha, inks by Danielle Enriquez, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., and letters by Tom Napolitano. I don't know that I was necessarily surprised by where this goes in 2 issues, given what number 1 seeds, but I'll be damned if I didn't enjoy the ride.
I was going to say, I don't know what part of this I like the most. I mean, clearly it has to do with all of the character interaction. I can tell you the characters they have chosen to place on this new team.
So good.
The dynamics between them are absolutely amazing. They're so different from anybody that we have. Like, you think John is, he's just Superman, but younger and on this team. But he's not.
Well, I think this is something Future State has done really well with him in particular. And it makes so much sense in this context why the first issues each of Superman and Action Comics are going to be about him worrying about his future.
Yeah.
Because so much of what we've seen of him is trying to find his place where he's living up to his father's legacy, which is important to him, but balancing that with the fact that he's not Superman. He's not fully Kryptonian.
Right.
He doesn't have the same life experiences. And I think it was Superman of Metropolis last week where he even says, I don't feel like I lost a homeworld the way Dad did. I feel like I've never had one.
Yep.
Which is a wildly different context for him.
It is. But I mean, you look. I mean, clearly Joe Mullane is very different from almost any Lantern we've had before.
Yeah.
Yara Flor is nothing like Diana.
Here's the thing, though. I feel like they are all distinct characters from the characters whose legacies they carry.
Yeah, I was going to say personality. When I say nothing like, I mean personality-wise.
I do think, though, in sort of that DC working in archetypical ways manner, each of them fills the role in the math.
Exactly.
They're all the same variable in the equation. Like, John is a different kind of Superman, but he still wakes up every morning and spells out "Good morning, Metropolis" in the clouds.
Yeah. He's still hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman, Yara Flor is like more hot-headed than we normally see Diana, but she's that way because she's very passionate in the same way that Diana is.
Yep, exactly.
Batman is still distrusting, even if now his distrust is rooted in, at least partially in, being the black sheep of his family, in coming through a police state, which none of the next Batman stuff has been explicitly about race, but
Right.
it's hard to read his history without that being a factor.
Sure.
I mean, Andy is kind of the best of both worlds of both of her parents.
Yeah. I was gonna. Andy is surprisingly kind of the most what you would expect, right?
But because she's picking from two different characters, she still feels distinctive from either of them.
Yep, agreed.
Like, I think there's a beat. The Mara beat would be "Don't call me princess." The Andy beat is, "Oh no, they're the only person who calls me princess."
Correct.
And the threat is implicit in that. No one else could get away with it.
No one else can call me that. Yes.
Yeah. It's like Jin's Twitter bio. Only her grandmother gets to call her Jinny.
There you go. Yes.
Um,
I love the. It appears some people know each other better than others.
yeah, they do.
Princess Andy here likes to talk in her sleep. Oh, okay.
Maybe some brief spoilers here. I'm gonna say 2 minutes on the clock for us on this one.
Okay.
I'll call go. But on the last page of this, I'm gonna say on those spoilers, spoiler starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay.
The Justice League is talking about expanding their ranks.
Yes.
And I want to talk about, first off, the options they have on the table here. One of whom I'm not totally sure that I place. But we've got Crush, The Guardian, Mr. Miracle, Tim Drake, Miss Martian. And do you know who this other character is? She's a black woman.
She is.
But I don't know who she is.
I don't either.
But they're talking about expanding the Justice League, having finally, dropped the whole no fraternization rules. What do you think of some of these choices?
I mean, I tell you who I like.
Crush and Miss Martian.
Yeah. I want Crush. Yeah.
I like both of them. I also really like the idea of this looks like the Shiloh Norman design from Future State.
It does.
I like the idea of having him on the team. I mean, honestly, all of these would be great.
Yeah. Specifically Crush and Miss Martian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would give something that none of the other characters have, which is the fact that one of them would then be an alien. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would just give that one unique perspective piece, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I like both of those choices.
It also has kind of the implicit promise that we will see more of this roster somewhere.
Oh yeah. The one that's really interesting to me, I'll be honest though, is the thought of Tim Drake.
Yeah.
With Jace on as Batman. And Tim on as Rob. Like, ooh, how does that work?
Yeah, because clearly he has not kept the Drake nickname outside of Young Justice. Like, that died in Young Justice.
Only Young Justice calls me that. Yes, exactly.
Why did you say that name?
That, like, to me, that could be because, like, there's not the mentor-mentee relationship in any, like, there's no relation really between them.
None at all.
But there's still the Batman Robin thing, and I think there would be some expectations almost in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's weird too, because Tim then has more experience as a superhero.
Right? Yeah. That's why I said that could be really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't hate any of these choices though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have our backup, which is Justice League Dark, written by Ram V, art by Marcio Takara, colors by Marcelo Maiolo, and letters by Rob Lee. This is actually set 10 years earlier in 2030. And the thing I think is, one, unique to this story so far in Future State, and two, so well executed. Like, okay, it is no secret that if Ram V writes it, I am buying it.
I was going to say, I was waiting for you to find a pause so I could say, it's almost like that Ram V can write good stuff.
Yeah. Like, it was always a foregone conclusion that whatever form Justice League Dark takes after this, if he's writing it, I'm getting it. And It will continue as a backup in Justice League in March. But the way he is hooked back in this very, like, Infinity War Doctor Strange way.
Yep.
There are futures where things go right, not many, and this isn't one of them.
No, this is not one of them.
I'm buying you the chance to fix it is, like, really satisfying. Just to sort of take the future state context and make it sort of diegetically, this is a possible future and these are your stakes.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense with a magic-based team to kind of let them see reality in that different way. But also it means, kind of like Teen Titans and Teen Titans Academy, anything that happens in this story, we're going to have this specter looming over us of, oh, we're getting closer to what that reality looked like. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yet this could be what ends up if they're not careful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really loved this.
It's almost, well, and the fact that, there's so many possible futures and, only a very few where things don't go, or one where the things don't go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It's always so these are kind of being presented as, like, the most likely futures even.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a lot of effort involved to not get these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Moving on to Future State Kara Zor-El, Superwoman, number 2. We are now in 2050. This is written by Marguerite Bennett. Art and colors are by Marguerite Sauvage. And letters are by Wes Abbott.
Am I the only one that teared up a little bit at the end of this?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that said, do you remember what the first chapter of this was called?
Yeah, was it Good Boy?
No, it was called Two Graves.
Oh, that's right, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, in the context of the first issue, it's the whole, before you seek to destroy someone else, dig 2 graves, one for you, one for them.
Yes.
And actually, this is 2 Graves Part 2.
Part 2, right, yeah.
Yeah. But this takes that in a very kind of same but different direction.
Yes. Okay, can we pause for a moment and just once again admire Marguerite Sauvage art and color?
It's so beautiful.
It's just...
And truly unlike anything else in the Future State line.
Yes. Yes. Just these bright washes of color and
and it's I think I probably talked about this last time too, but there is something that is always really fascinating and endearing and interesting to me in so consciously taking a story that is about something like anger and vengeance and having to always deal with those feelings.
Yep.
Betrayal, even, in a way, by family.
Yeah.
And casting it against such almost serene, pretty aesthetics.
Yeah.
One, you've got the obvious commentary on, okay, this is the expectation of Supergirl, Superwoman being pretty and pleasant and feminine versus being angry and being, having vengeance in her and all of those quote-unquote male-associated feelings, which is bullshit that they're associated specifically with men. But, like, it's I think, a really, I don't know, satisfying way to sort of draw into focus how all-consuming that anger is, even when you can never see it.
Yeah, I think this was a beautiful, wonderful, but poignantly sad ending, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad in that, like, life goes on and sometimes your legacy is just being a good example and you're not part of the world anymore, but that the world continues is on you in a way. Like, it is your victory that you'll never see. It's the Hamilton line, what is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden that you'll never get to see.
Right, yeah. There you go. In this case, literally a garden.
Literally.
Right? Yeah.
The
Eternal
metaphor.
Garden. Yes.
Last Future State for this week, Superman Wonder Woman number 2.
Okay, this goes, we're not going to step through each part of this. I love this story. I love how how they allow it to tie the character interaction into the storyline,
Uh-huh.
right? And I think one of the things I really, really like is how they're able to present this relationship between the two of them, Superman and Wonder Woman. Right?
Yeah.
And it's so again, it's so different from what Clark and Diana have, but it fulfills that same kind of like they each fulfill the roles that of Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Their relationship fills that same thing, but it's uniquely theirs.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's like we talked about with Justice League. It
Yeah.
is similar but different in the way that, the world in 30 years will be similar but different.
Yeah.
I think, and going back to the whole John is a totally different Superman, but he's still, Superman.
Right.
My favorite just single detail from this is that there is a pocket universe that shows up like clockwork every day, where there's this world being pulled into a black hole, and every day by 10:30 in the morning, John has to fire matter into the black hole to push the planet back out.
Right. But he can't destroy the black hole,
because then the planet just flings off into space and dies anyway.
Right.
So he just has to, once a day, wait for this portal to open, fire an energy gun, and then go about his day.
Yep. Yeah. I think their age, the youthfulness of the two of them, it adds a lot of energy to that relationship too.
Oh, you're so right. I had not thought about that, but yes.
Yeah. Like they're learning who they are as much as they're learning about each other, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I love it.
It's like the scene where Yara is wrestling with one of the celestial boars.
Uh-huh.
And just cannot, she's fighting it, and John's like, "Oh no, here, I've got proficiency in animal handling. Also, it's a girl."
Let me roll my D20.
Yeah. It's like, no,
Yeah.
you don't fight it. You soothe it. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, they are though. It's like so much like two late 20-somethings who are friends, just kind of like, let me figure out how to actually function in the world. Except the world is
maybe even early to mid 20s. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that but yeah, and
I was giving them credit for having it a little more together than early 20s.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But what I don't hate the idea of eventually, because I know there's going to be a push at some point to make a relationship between these two. I don't necessarily hate that. If that's the case, though, give it a long time to work itself out.
Yeah.
Just let it go, right?
I mean, as soon as you started to say it, I immediately, gut reaction was, no, I don't want to see that.
My point being, I don't want that to be something that somebody writes. I just want them to tell stories with these two.
Yeah.
And
if it happens, it happens.
Exactly. Let it be kind of real. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I do think what you're saying is, as much as I flinch at the idea, I think you're right that if it's going to happen, it has to be a down the road.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that is not only it for Future State, but for DC in general.
Okay, I do have to point out one single thing that happened, though.
Yeah?
And that's that John punched a son.
It's true.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's still no punching reality and bringing Jason back to life, but it's pretty cool.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Can you
imagine?
imagine?
Just getting started, right? Yeah.
Can you imagine the world in which every time Superman does something impressive, Batman's like, "Yeah, but have you punched reality today?"
There you go. I mean, to be fair, isn't that kind of what Flex Mentallo does all the time, though?
I feel like Flex Mentallo doesn't punch reality so much as flexes reality.
There you go. Okay, that's fair.
He just ripples his muscles and reality warps in it. It vibrates
response.
out through reality, and
Yeah.
it's like giving reality a massage.
There you go. Oh wow, there's I don't know if I like that or not.
There's our episode title, though.
Giving reality a massage. Ooh,
Massaging
reality. What's next on our agenda for today?
Well, as you were digging yourself out from a shattered piano last week,
Yeah.
you have brought to the table a handful of mostly first issues of things.
Yes, I have.
And as such, in honor of our 250th episode, we are bringing back a return to Brian's Corner.
Okay, here we go.
Tell me about Redemption #1.
Yeah, so the first one up is Redemption. It is an AWA Upshot book, which is not a publisher that I think we've talked about before. Specifically, the creative team on this, the writer's Krista Faust. The art is Mike Diodato Jr. Colorist is Lee Loffridge. Letterer is Steve Wands. This is a story about it's an old west story. There is a town that is run by the religious leader of the town, who has the sheriff under his thumb. The sheriff is kind of his right-hand henchman. And we find out that in the past there was somebody who reached out, who fought against them. Her name is Kat Tanner, whose nickname is the Butcher.
Kat Tanner, as in there's more than one way to skin a cat?
Potentially. It turns out that Kat Tanner is probably about the only thing that the two of them are scared of. She is an absolute badass. And we have a character who has been arrested for essentially helping a young girl have an abortion because she was raped. And the sheriff and the pastor, they try to whip a confession out of her, and then she's basically sentenced to death. So her daughter goes out to try to find Kat Tanner to see if. Turns out it was all a pretense, because she has been leading a rebellion against them in the town, an underground rebellion. And so her daughter goes out to try to find Kat Tanner, who nobody has heard from in years and years. Turns out that they send out a posse after her, and she shows up at this abandoned gas station about the same time that the posse catches up to her, and it turns out that's where Kat Tanner is. And the posse makes the mistake of saying, when she says "get off my property," of saying, "Who the fuck are you, Grandma?" And let's just say it doesn't end well for them. And that's kind of where this goes. But this is the idea behind this. There's some back matter from Krista Faust. It was about how, there have been stories with lead female characters, with lead female queer characters. It turns out Kat Tanner is also queer, by the way. But there's still, I think, as she puts it, there's a comment some days about, yeah, I'm fine with lesbians as long as they're both hot, right? And she's like, so I wanted to write something about a badass, strong female queer character who had nothing to do with being attractive or hot, or in this case she's old and she's grandma.
Yeah, there's no objectification. There's no male gaze.
Yeah. She just doesn't play by the rules that society expects her to play by.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's super, super cool. I really, really like this. That's why I wanted to bring this up. So
I'm glad
super
you did.
Good book. Yeah.
Next up, you have The Last Witch #2.
#2. I talked about the first one last time, but I just wanted to bring up, and I'll be super quick on this one. we really find out what's going on in this particular issue, and it doesn't hold anything back. It's drawn and presented a lot like a kid accessible book, kind of like the art style kind of reminds me of like maybe the Dragon Prince from Netflix, or that kind of animated kind of art style. Um, but the story gets quite dark. Um, there's very, very much Irish uh, folklore influence in the Fae and kind of and witches and kind of what's going on there. But we get a much more clear picture of where everyone is going to fit in this story and what it is that they have to try and do. Just absolutely incredible. I can't recommend this enough.
And
Um,
just get it into the record. This is
oh yeah,
written by Connor McCreary,
yep,
with art by VV Glass, colors by Natalia Nestrenko, letters by Jim Campbell, and designed by Grace Park.
yeah. And I very specifically want to call out Natalia Nesterenko in this. The colors in this are some of the best I have ever seen. I just love everything about them.
So I did a quick look up to see if this was part of Boom's Boombox line, which
Uh-huh.
is its kid-friendly line. It's not, but they do talk about it as a YA, a dark YA series.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
That
yeah, if you're
that's about
listening,
that's
trying
what
to
I would
place
present
it,
it as.
yeah,
Yeah. Like to give you to get there there's a witch that eats a child in this.
like you do.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. Okay.
That takes us then to Orcs.
It,
Orcs number 1.
it is Orcs. This is
Orcs. There's an exclamation point, Brian. It's not Orcs. It's Orcs.
Orcs. That's it. This is written and illustrated by Christine Larson. Let's see. Where did I go? And the design. So basically, Christine Larson does everything in this, and then the designer is Grace Park. Um, uh, this is kind of big, goofy orc fun. It reminds me, like just character wise, a little bit of now I can't remember the name. Sebastian Gerner. What was the dragon book that he did?
Scales and
Scales and
Scoundrels.
Scoundrels. Okay. Yeah, that is definitely the one I'm thinking of. There's definitely a vibe that reminds me some of that. Part of it's the art style a little bit.
Yeah.
Part of it is the characterization a little bit. Um, we start out with this story about an orc that it turns out that a kind of a grandmother type figure is reading to a bunch of kids that is about Drod, who is an orc adventurer, and
Kneel
just
before Drod.
the goofy adventure that he goes on. It's pretty wonderful. And then we switch to like this orc village that's like in a cave system, and when like she passes by some orcs that are practicing for their band, and one that's like carving all of these historical frescoes of telling of battles into the side of the cave and all this. And then she mixes up some drugs and goes on a trip to the astral plane. Right? Uh, and then it pivots, and we see like a brother and sister, or a mother and father with a young child who are going off on an adventure. So they tell their kid with the wolf, like, "Yeah, someone will feed you. Don't worry about it. If not, then just swipe some food while we're gone." Just uh, they get out, and I don't want to go through step, but like as a example of the kind of just goofiness that happens, they go into this orc wood. Oh, by the way, their name for this orc wood is the this is all one word, no spaces. The Erie is all hell woods, right? Uh, they're after this treasure that it turns out is guarded by squirrels, and I mean like these. Turns out these squirrels uh, are now led by a general who saw the overthrow of the king squirrel in the past and beheaded him, and now have deemed that no one is allowed to go into that grove on penalty of death.
Like squirrels do.
There's a couple of elves who are like, "Oh, we should go help them," and the other elf is like, "No, trust me, the squirrels have this. Just leave it alone." So yeah, it's just big, awesome, goofy fun. I like it.
And this is from Boom's Kaboom line, which is middle grades.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. This was fun.
All right. Next up, Specter Inspectors #1.
I really, really dug. This is one that this is a Boombox book. This is one I'm absolutely going to push Jen into reading. No doubt about it whatsoever. It is created and written by Bowen McCurdy and Caitlin Musto. The art is by Bowen McCurdy, and letters are Jim Campbell. Designer is Michelle Unkley. This is Scooby-Doo meets a...
Reluctant Werewolf.
No.
Ghoul School.
No, I can tell you what it's Scooby-Doo meets the Nancy Drew that was done about 2.5 years ago.
Oh,
with her and the Hardy Boy and their little the one that had kind of an animated art style.
The Kelly Thompson.
Yep, exactly.
If we're comparing something to Kelly Thompson, that's how you know it's good.
Yeah, it really, really is. It is this group of four young folks, one of which is like still in high school, I think even. The other three are obviously out of high school, and they do a podcast web series about investigating the supernatural. They think they finally found it. One of them is like, "Well, we can doctor up some evidence. That's fine," and the other's like, "No, we can't do that." And it turns out they don't have to, because by the end of it, one of them is possessed.
Yay!
Yeah, it's so good. I love everything.
I may have to check this out.
I love the art style. I love the characters. I love the story. Like everything. Everything in this is good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How's about Black Hammer Visions #1?
This was a really cool idea. The Black Hammer universe, obviously has become super, super popular. So what they did is they created this book called Visions that is going to let different creative teams come in to write small stories in the Black Hammer universe.
Anthology style.
Yeah. Specifically in the time frame when they are in the world of the farm.
Cool.
If that means something to you if you've read Black Hammer. Yeah. This first one is written by Patton Oswalt. The art is Dean Kotz. Color is by Jason Wordy. Letters by Nate Picos. This is about two girls in town who have just graduated high school, and they are reminiscing about a weird girl that grew up with them but then disappeared named Gail. And then a few years later, when they're in like 8th grade, and of course Gail hasn't aged at all, so now it's her cousin Wendy, who looks just like her cousin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Gail is like a 50-something-year-old woman, or even more so. I can't remember exactly what the age is. But so she smokes and drinks and cusses, and and so she's always doing inappropriate things in school, right? I think I've got to find it, but I think my absolute favorite is there is a point where you just see her in front of her science fair project at the science fair, and the principal is like marching madly down the aisle to go speak with her. Her project is everything dies. Things that die. Puppies, kittens, mom, dad, dreams, love. Yes, even you.
Somebody's been reading too much Jonathan Hickman.
It's beautiful. But yeah, so it is, and it's about it's kind of from the perspective of these two girls, and like she has told each of them something. Like one of them is, "You're weird and different, and that's okay. Don't ever stop being that." Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is a little bit more traditional, uh, uh, and she tells her that at some point you two are going to go in different directions, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that starting at the end of this book.
Everything dies, even friendships.
There you go. Yeah, but it's super 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 cool. I like it.
All right, our final entry in Brian's corner.
Whew.
Fear case number 1. Got to catch your breath there for a second, Brian.
Yeah, here we go. This is Matt Kent. Is the writer. Art is Tyler Jenkins. Colorist is Hillary Jenkins, and the design is Patrick Satterfield. This is I'm going to talk first about the art in this by Tyler Jenkins and colors by Hillary Jenkins. This is very much like a colored pencil sketch style, or I don't know how else to describe it.
Like you see the sort of pencil strokes in the art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not sketchy so much as just like you see the way you'd see a brush stroke. You see a pencil stroke.
And then like backgrounds look almost very watercolory.
Cool.
Right. Yeah. So art style's very different, but it works for this book. This is about two agents who they work for the Secret Service. So one of the things it talks about is how the Secret Service was literally the first federal police force. It predates the CIA, it predates the FBI, right? And that their oldest unsolved case is called The Case, because it is literally about this case that turns up when disasters happen, either assassinations or natural disasters in some cases or whatever. And as we go through, eventually they are trying to track it down. When partners come in to the thing, they are given this case for 1 year. At the end of a year, they're removed and somebody else is assigned to it. So they have 1 year to try and solve it. And the reason is because there are agents who have become obsessed with it and can't let it go, and it has driven them mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got to imagine there are also agents who are like, oh no, they're hazing us.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like, I just, that concept feels so rich.
Yeah. So there's one where they go and they go to this house because they have had word that it was there, right? So they go to this house and they find this girl with blood on the bottom of her nightgown and on her feet, and they go out and they find her mom standing in a pool with a knife, and we hear the story of how her ex-husband brought her this case. I'm sorry, her ex-boyfriend brought her this case, and she was essentially told that she had to give it to the person she hated the most within 3 days. So it's almost like a chain letter.
Or The Ring.
Yeah, and right. And you can't open and look in it either. Right?
Yeah.
So turns out that her and her husband have been having a lot of problems. He's been cheating on her, et cetera, et cetera. So eventually she gives him the case, and that's kind of the last thing she remembers. And they find the husband in the basement, all cut up and dead, but the case is not there anymore. So yeah, we're obviously going to track this through, but this is crazy supernatural kind of stuff.
Cool.
Fun.
Well, speaking of crazy supernatural kind of stuff, moving on to Image, Homesick Pilots number 3. This is written by Dan Waters, art and colors are by Casper Wingard, and letters are by Aditya Bidikar. And I want to start this off with actually a line from Dan Waters' newsletter that came out this week talking about this issue. He says he looks forward to people getting their hands on it, that third issues are always interesting. A first issue sets an expectation. A second issue either reinforces or breaks that expectation, which means by the third issue, you've established a pattern and a direction. which is a long way of saying I think this is where people are going to start figuring out what we're doing with Homesick Pilots and what kind of book this really is. And I think that is dead on what this issue does.
I think that's a very, very apt description.
We get a couple of new ideas, but largely we actually see what's going on not from Amy's perspective, but from her bandmates. And we find out, like, she's just been off sort of like, she's on her 4th or 5th artifact at this point that she's retrieved in like a week, maybe. And that the house is sending her away every time anyone comes to look for her.
Well, yeah, because one of the things that we see early on is she goes to see one of her bandmates while they're sleeping.
Yeah.
And kind of has this moment where she, vocalizes to herself and says, "Why I thought you would have come to look for me by now, but I guess that was maybe too much to hope for or whatever." And not realizing that, they have. We find out later he's been there every day.
Yeah, the house lied to her.
Every time he comes, the house sends her out to get another artifact.
And this time she ends up in over her head. This is the other sort of new concept here that the way I read this is like, okay, this is where maybe the Power Rangers comparison from all the solicitations kicks in.
Okay.
And where things kind of are starting to take form now. He comes in again, looking for her. She's been sent off. But this time she's in over her head and is up against maybe something not from this house.
Right.
And he finds the horseshoe from issue 2 and becomes that monster to go save her. And like, I think the idea of that is unexpected to me. The them getting involved and sort of like powering up from these items.
Yep.
I did not see that coming, but also like now it feels like there's a lot of gas in the tank that explains, okay, if this is not just a Monster of the Week book, what is this about?
Right.
I never really doubted that we'd get that answer, but I didn't know what that answer was going to be.
Can I tell you that these monster designs, though, are, you know what, actually, I can tell you, I was struggling to reach the best thing I could think to compare them to, but I have 100% figured it out. And that's Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol creatures.
Oh, yeah. That's a good... I think that's a good point of reference. I think I went to... What did I go to in number 2? I went to, like, Final Fantasy. Like, Final Fantasy bosses.
Okay.
I think, like, if you take those ideas and maybe the Power Rangers idea and, like, monster design from that, I think all of those are playing in the same space as this. Yeah.
And then there's one where she goes in and sees, which I guess was the ghost from the house. That's a design that kind of made me think of Lock and Key also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, what do you think about a lamp that shows people like shadow play of how they're gonna die?
Oh my god, right? Or the super creepy one in here is the it is a VHS videotape.
Mm-hmm.
That the tape comes out of it, and the tape like wraps until it forms a silhouette of a human body.
Yeah.
And then the VHS tape with the two notches on the bottom end up being the eyes.
Yeah.
Of this thing. It's like, okay, that is super damn creepy.
Such great this character design.
Yeah. I mean, I say I don't like this. I absolutely love this. This book is amazing.
It just gives you the most intense heebie-jeebies.
Oh, super creepy.
We have
everything about this. Everything about this book.
Then we have Radiant Black number 1. This is written by Kyle Higgins, with art and colors by Marcelo Costa and letters by Becca Carey. I think I mentioned last week, like, this book having sort of a Power Rangers vibe to me. I had forgotten that Kyle Higgins actually wrote a lot of that Power Rangers run that I love. And also, like, wrote Nightwing for DC. And I mentioned both of those things because I definitely feel some of those vibes in this. Like, this is a book about a writer who's moved off to the city to become the next great crime fiction writer, and he's had some short stories published. And now he's driving for Uber, and like $30,000 of credit card debt has piled up, and he's got 20-something bucks to his name, and ends up having to move back home. Which, if you know me, and if you've ever heard me talk about my hometown, welcome to like my greatest fear ever, having to move back to my hometown. And he meets up with, I don't know if it's his best friend from his hometown, or just like, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like what's the name of Wally's best friend and Leave It to Beaver? Eddie Haskell. He reminds me of like a dirtbag Eddie Haskell, who he shows up and asks the guy's parents.
So Biff Tanner?
No, he's better than Biff.
Okay.
He actually has redeemable qualities.
Got it. Okay.
He's like, yeah, can I take your son out and show him how the town doesn't suck anymore? You don't have to ask their permission. Oh yeah, honey, go ahead. Like, it's that kind of, like, very Eddie Haskell. What a lovely ensemble vibe.
Yes. Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Not so much I'm gonna beat you up and whatever.
Got it.
So they go out drinking and end up both pretty sauced when this like black hole void shows up, and the main character reaches out and touches it and becomes transformed into this like Sentai costume that freaks him out, and they end up on the railroad tracks. Like, they're both very drunk. The main character, the writer, sort of reveals, yeah, I basically just was afraid to actually submit and write a thing and submit and possibly be rejected, and I've wasted this opportunity and I'm here now. And that's when Dirtbag Friend kind of shines and like is actually a decent human underneath with the whole look. I don't know how you got here, but you've got this, and that makes you, this is a new opportunity. It makes you unique. No one else has this. Cut to clearly an evil version of him robbing the bank in another town. Lots of kind of weird world building as background to a narrative that is really more built on fear of failure, which I think is interesting. Like, I kind of go to those Nightwing vibes because it reminds me a little of his Nightwing run, which was about Nightwing having been raised to be the next Talon by the Court of Owls, and what was that legacy? I don't know where this goes next, but it is a cool book, and I think worth checking out. Also, the art and coloring are really, really great. King in Black Roundup.
This is Alex's corner.
Pretty much. This is going to be quick, though.
Okay.
I'm just going to hit the highlights here. We had Daredevil number 27. This was written by Chip Zdarsky, with art by Marco Cicchetto and Mike Hawthorne, inks by Marco Cicchetto and Adriano De Benedetto, colors by Marcio Moniz, and letters by Clayton Cowles. The nullified Matt does his damnedest to fight off Null's control in what is one of the most like clever and also horrifying ways imaginable. Mm-hmm. He's in prison and knows that electricity will fight off a symbiote, so he puts himself in the electric chair.
Oh, shit.
It's absolutely wild. Meanwhile, Elektra, who is in the streets as Daredevil, is chasing off Typhoid Mary, who has been nullified, and another woman who's trying to kill her child or nullify her child. And just struggling with, how does Matt fucking handle this nonsense? I also like the Kingpin arc in this, which is very much about, like, he has ignored the Avengers' warnings that Null was coming, and Wesley is like handling the PR for it. He's like, no, you weren't warned. You were given no notice of this, sir. Like, playing just the scumbag politics of it.
Yeah.
Well, what Fisk is really concerned with is Mary, like, threw herself at these things to save him.
Right.
And he feels some amount of guilt over not doing anything about it.
I love the idea of Fisk feeling guilt.
Right? Yeah. Like, how do you manage that, Chip? Then we move on to Fantastic Four number 29. This is written by Dan Slott, art is by Zay Carlos, colors are by Jesus Abertov, and letters are by Joe Caramagna. This is, I think, one of the biggest explorations of the Johnny and Skye as soulmates arc since the team returned to Earth. And you really get a sense that, okay, this is not just local superstition from Skye's planet. This is actually something meaningful, and this bond does have some kind of like inherent, almost supernatural connection. Like she can sort of instinctively know things that Johnny will like, and vice versa. And Sue is not having this. Sue like goes invisible to stalk them as they're going shopping, just to try to find proof that this is like fiction and that Johnny is being manipulated. There's definitely, I think, a beat in this that maybe could be not for everyone, but that I found honestly really funny and very like big sisterly. He's like, what, you've never done this with any of my other girlfriends, going invisible and following me? She's like, no, I haven't, that you know of. Like this idea of Sue never thinking anyone Johnny dates actually has his best interests in mind.
Yeah.
Then the fight with Null breaks out, and Sue learns she's wrong, perhaps, when Johnny gets nullified, and without a symbiote anywhere nearby, Skye is immediately nullified too, because of this connection.
Yeah.
I like the Skye character a lot, and I'm glad that we're finally getting some more space with her, because I feel like we haven't had a lot of it since they came back from her planet. We also had King in Black, Black Panther #1 this week. This is written by Jeffrey Thorne, art is by Herman Peralta, colors are by Jesus Abertov, and letters are by Joe Sabino. This is a one-shot that kind of splits time between Shuri and T'Challa, dealing with Null's symbiotes having breached the shield around Wakanda, and whether they can fight them off, how they can fight them off, and what resources is it worth our risking exposing to the world that we have in order to fight them off. It covers a lot of ground. It honestly reminded me in ways of that issue of, I think it was Marauders, where Storm had to go steal the sword from Wakanda, in the way that it covers so much ground and deals so much with like character and history, but does so in these really clever, really efficient ways, so that it never feels weighed down or never feels like it's too much exposition. It's really smart storytelling. Also, an army of Shuris fighting dragons. She has like remote dolls that she can pilot and control like drones, and like pilot with her consciousness like embedded in each of them at the same time. It's really cool. King in Black, Thunderbolts #2. This is written by Matthew Rosenberg. Art and colors are by Juan Ferreira, and letters are by Joe Sabino. This is picking up where the last one left off, right as the Thunderbolts team, which at this point is down to just Taskmaster, Star, Batroc Zeleper, and is his name Mr. Nightmare or something like that? I mean, the obvious comic relief, surprised he's not just cannon fodder kind of character you'd expect in basically a Suicide Squad book. That's sort of the space this lives. They have all arrived at Ravencroft to get Norman Osborn's help, and are very disappointed that Norman Osborn is like chill and nice now.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But he does have a plan for them, and after they deal with the nullified inmates, he sends them to find the bottom half of Hyperion to use as a bomb to take down Null. And that brings us to Sword #3 and Krakoa. I'm going to argue this is more an X-Men book than a King in Black book this week.
Agreed, yeah.
But it does have some ties in and some context that has to do with King in Black. This was written by Al Ewing with art by Valerio Schiti, Ray Anthony Heint, Bernard Chang, and Nico Leon. Colors by Marte Gracia. Letters by Ariana Marr. And design by Tom Moeller. First off the bat, shout out to Marte Gracia. Anytime you have a colorist, whether it's across a series or across a single book, keeping things so visually consistent with changing artists, it is, I think, worth pointing out because that takes a lot of skill and goes a long way.
Yep. There's some this was interesting because there's some real subtle things that happen in this.
I agree. I also really love this entire issue is just about basically a single character. It's about Manifold.
Yep.
Traveling across space and Earth and back again, basically. And you're right, there are a lot of really subtle things, especially about clarifying his power set, and really in the way that I think it gives him some things to do that are not just, oh yeah, I can teleport.
Well, yeah, teleport. Like there's one of the text pages, right, is a personal notes from Abigail Brand that talks about it, and that, he's often just treated like a teleporter, but like that's not what he is. And as she describes it, he talks to space.
He is to space-time as Aquaman is to fish.
Yeah, and asks it to do things, and like, oh, can you bend to the other side of the galaxy to touch yourself here so I can pass through and travel there?
Yeah,
and it will do that for him. Yeah.
Or can you bend around me so that light passes around me and I'm basically invisible? Right. Yeah. There's a thing we see him do in this that's cool where he like has kind of the opposite, like I guess it would be like opening a tunnel in space.
Yeah.
So he can just peer an eyeball into a locked room.
Yep. But you think about that and you're like, that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, so because of this, there's a couple of things. Like he goes and he visits one of the potential successors to the heir of the Stoat Crown, right?
The Snark Crown, the Snark War.
Snark War, right? Yes. But the part about that's kind of the subtle thing is he essentially, on behalf of Krakoa, it sounded like, is offering the powers of 2 mutants to one of the successors in the line.
Yeah, so we get an explanation of Snark War, which is basically the Snark leader dies and their heirs immediately know they have, I guess, Snark sense. And it tingles and they know it's time to go to war with each other.
It's Snark entanglement is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quantum ensnarkment.
There you go. I like it.
So all the Snark leader siblings basically are at war with one another. And there is one who has no planet, he just has a fleet, because he's traditional that way. And Manifold comes to him to ask him, will you fight Null alongside us? You can get there faster than anyone else, and you don't have a planet being decimated.
Right.
And yeah, he Snarks steal powers from other creatures. And while there is nothing more sacred to mutants, it's worth a trade, and a couple of mutants have come forward offering it. And the Snark leader's like, often this will kill the people whose powers we take. And Manifold's response is, yeah, they'd actually prefer it that way. It's a whole lot simpler for them. Because then they don't have to go into the Colosseum and fight for the right to
die, right?
Yeah.
And be reborn. Yeah.
But he turns them down because having no planet means that Null is actually a benefit to him.
Yeah, he's like all of my competitors have planets, and if Null kills them, that's great for me.
Yeah. But it's space politics. I love the space politics of this book. Also, feeling really good about that called shot from Immortal Hulk. When Gyrick showed up, I'm like, oh, he's going to be a problem for the mutants when Sword happens.
Yep, we called it.
lo and behold, he has been turned by Orcus, and the thing Manifold leaves the room a little too quickly to learn is that he's got a spine sword.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those of you who don't remember, Orcus is the one who had the mother, what do they call it?
Mother mold?
The mother mold, right. That was the big ginormous sentinel head that was orbiting the sun.
That was the mission that the X-Men team went on to take down, that I think way back in...
Like one of the first, very, very first issues, yeah.
Yeah, that sort of taught us about the Five and...
Well, because in that one specifically, that's before we knew, right? And we saw several characters die. And we're like, what's going on? They can't be killing these characters.
Yeah.
And then we find out about the resurrection protocols, right?
Yeah. Because Hickman doesn't leave anything on the cutting room floor.
No.
And neither does Ewing.
We get this very heavily redacted page, right? That's, first of all, it's very Hickman. Second of all, it's very Krakoan in its kind of design too, right? We have this kind of flower with a central executive who is, redacted out. We don't know who it is. And we see three. So there's like the central one that's in the middle of the flower, and then there's three that are in kind of the light above it, and there's three that are in the shadow below it.
Yeah.
The three that are in the light, we at least learn the names of these departments, right? We have research and development. We have infrastructure and influence, which is where Gyrich is.
Yep.
And we have operations and offense. Then we have the central executive, which is in the middle. And then the bottom three, the whole thing is blacked out. We know nothing about what it is.
Space politics. I love it.
Oh, so good, so good.
Politics and conspiracy and... Yes.
Yep.
Moving on to X-Force number 17. This was written by Benjamin Percy. Art was by Joshua Cassara. Colors were by Guru EFX. Letters by Joe Caramagna and designed by Tom Moeller. I would call this one the mini deaths of Quentin Quire.
Yes, absolutely.
The cold open is basically just panel after panel of him dying. And, we joked about enjoying it. And we joked about it being funny. And there is, I think, still a whistling past the grave element to that.
Yeah, but it's also kind of brutal.
I'm starting to feel badly for it.
Right? That, and then the other thing that we get from this is that Phoebe is way too good for him.
Way too. I mean, Phoebe is the best cuckoo.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But also, maybe if he would get his shit together, he'd be good enough for her.
Maybe. Okay, and then let's be fair. Everybody loves a costume tryout page.
Yes, absolutely. Good.
I don't know which of these I like the best. There's the pink and purple Cable outfit.
So many pouches.
Too many pouches. God. Too pouchy? Yes. There is the pink and black Wolverine outfit.
As we call it, the kiss-ass special. I do like the sort of psychic claws in that one, though.
Yeah. Kind of yes, I agree.
The Glob Herman one is especially interesting.
Yes. Where essentially he's just naked in a glowy suit. Yeah. Yep. So much. The one that they settle on for him, though, is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why it is, though, but the way that Omega symbol across his torso is shaped, I really feel like because it's just an Omega symbol, but the way it's shaped, I feel like it's almost foreshadowing like him stealing Magneto's helmet.
Oh,
and,
I see that.
Incorporating his helmet into the costume. You see it? Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I love is, and we find out why this is okay, right? Is he doesn't need glasses. So the glasses are just a pink psi energy shape of glasses that just are there.
Yeah, this is another one for the X-Men data page Hall of Fame.
Oh my god, this is fucking brilliant.
Quentin Quire's like genetic modification requests for the 5. Every time he gets revived, he asks for little changes.
So, right, one of the things that we knew this before, but it's pointed out again here, is that X-Force, because they are essentially like, the covert ops team of, they have priority in the Resurrection Protocol.
Yeah.
That also means that they get to make special requests, and Quentin totally abuses it.
Request 310, coloring his hair rose gold instead of pink. Request 311, coloring his hair pink instead of rose gold.
Let's see. He wants specific parts of his face to come back without hair follicles so he doesn't have to shave.
And also the rest of his body so he doesn't have to wax.
Correct. Adjusting his eyes to secure 20/20 vision acuity, making glasses a mere accessory.
Yeah.
It's like everything is like, yep, okay, this is like the most Quentin. Yes.
So that's the fun part of this book. The horrifying part of this book is there is a series of like false narratives being developed against Krakoa that are escalating to, in this issue, a cruise ship being staged as an attack by mutants. And everyone who survives it seems to think that different members of X-Force have been responsible. Up to and including not just Quentin Quire, but like Phoebe sees, all of them have evidence of his having psychically attacked them.
Yeah.
Brian, do you remember one of the other big exceptions to the resurrection protocols for X-Force? If you go to X Factor, what is the requirement in order to...
They have to have a body.
Not if they're X-Force. X-Force is an exception to that. We learn way
Oh, back. That's right. That's right.
Because I'd expected for a while, like, okay, at some point we're going to have dueling X-Force teams.
Right.
Because Wolverine or someone has gone deep undercover and they think he's dead.
Yeah.
And we'll get, like, a funny, oh, here are 2 Wolverines.
Yes. Yeah, we knew that was going to happen at some point, right?
I think it's a whole lot more terrifying than that, though.
I think it is, too.
Because one of or both of, I think, 2 things is happening here. I think, one, the way that, and we see, like, again, many Quentin Quire deaths.
Yes.
All the ways that he has died, like, he's been dismembered in different ways. A lot of X-Force members have lost body parts.
Yes.
I think that the Peacock Man and company are saving those body parts and Frankensteining them together, and might even have a whole Quentin Quire.
Well, so and there's several things that feed into this, right? We know from early on, right, that they took some of Domino's skin to graft on. So we know they're used to using body parts and grafting them together. We know that Wolverine's hand with his claw, right, was on sale.
Yep, and that the
Peacock
dude
Man
who
was
runs
there.
the organization was there.
Yep. So I think you're right. I think they are collecting pieces of them as they're able to. Yes.
It's like they've bought one too many of those Marvel action figures. Where after you finish buying Scott and Jean and Logan and Nightcrawler and Mystique, and Magneto, you've got all the pieces to build your own Colossus.
Well, speaking of Colossus, what I want to particularly point out, right, is one of the things they talk about when they go investigate some of these folks. One of them is like he gets a vision that he was killed by Wolverine, right? But like this pattern, the claw markings are too far apart for Logan, right?
Yeah.
And they know Logan wasn't there. One of them, he was crushed by Cyclops, but we know Cyclops was somewhere else at the time.
Well, and also all of the, like, visions of these characters. Like, they're nightmarish, and okay, yes, that could just be trauma, but especially the Quentin Quire one.
Yeah.
Looks like it's stitched together. Like, the eyes don't match each other.
Correct.
The hairline actually has literal stitching.
Yep.
Alongside it.
And my point to this is, I don't think they're going to have a whole Quentin Quire. I think they're making one creature out of all of these parts.
You think they're building like one Frankenstein with a bunch of X-Men parts and not an entire Frankenstein X-Force?
Correct.
I think it's a whole Frankenstein X-Force.
We'll see. We'll see.
Because we even see, like, later in the issue, a few pages later, Phoebe has spied on Healer doing the autopsy on Quentin's corpse, and, like, he's missing his head in that.
Yeah, yep. Well, and then at the end, we see a shot of the Peacock Man with, like, a tank with a couple of hearts in it, and several hands floating in a different tank, and
Random
like all
feet.
these body parts. Yeah, all super creepy.
I'm looking at these other deaths real quick to see what
what
missing
by the way,
body
my
parts.
favorite of them has to be the acid bath bomb.
Yes, that one is perfect.
As someone whose daughter often uses bath bombs, like that one just that was a lot.
Yeah, maybe they don't all involve him being ripped apart, but many of them do.
Yeah.
And that brings us to Excalibur number 18. Written by Tini Howard, art by Marcus Toe, colors by Eric Arciniega, letters by Ariana Maher, and designed by Tom Muller. Speaking of clones running around,
Oof.
nobody is totally believes that the Betsy who has returned is in fact Betsy. And they all kind of split up to investigate in different ways, right? Rogue heads back to Krakoa after Brian and family show up, and Brian is in agreement, and then they all disappear. So Betsy heads back, or not Betsy. Betsy does head back to Krakoa, but Rogue follows her.
Yep.
Gambit goes to talk to Monarch, to the other Braddock brother.
Jamie.
That's the name. And learns that Jamie, and we kind of knew this.
Yeah.
Jamie had someone, it was Sinister, grow a spare, empty Betsy Braddock body just in case.
Ugh.
And also still has Morgan Le Fay, like, held prisoner, which Gambit rightly says, this is,
not okay.
This is not okay and uncomfortable, mon ami.
Yeah. Can I just say how much I love Marcus Toe's art in this?
It's so good.
It's really, really good. Like I love his art style in the depiction of these characters. I really do.
Jamie has misplaced the Betsy double. And Richter, who goes with Rogue, is like really, really deep into the Apocalypse magic well.
Well, we find out that he is the heir of all of Apocalypse's magical research.
Which, like, I'm really into this idea of, because we've talked about how so many books seem to have different takes on combining powers. We've seen the 5. We've seen in Sword the 6.
Yep.
New Mutants talks about battle tactics, how sort of the original example of combining powers is the fastball special, and we want to train you guys to learn to mix and match and build off of each other's powers. Like, I like the idea that, okay, no, this is what magic is. It's just we have special powers, and if we use them the right way, we can change the world.
Yep. And we are more powerful when we combine these and work as a system. Yeah.
Yes. Collective bargaining. Like, there are a lot of moving parts here, and I think they all work really well. I was also super surprised and not surprised. Like, there was a part of me that said, oh, the alternate universe version of this character is up to something. Maybe swapped bodies or something.
Maybe.
But did something when she sent Betsy back. I did not expect, though, to see the, like, 616 Krakoan answer to Quanon Psylocke show up and help investigate.
Yeah, like and I think like at the end of this, I was like, oh, because they talk about several times in this, right? Rogue is like, I can't believe I don't know her better than this, and then Brian is like, nobody knows her better than I do. I'm her brother, blah blah, this all the other, right? And then at the end, we get Psylocke showing up and it's like, Oh wait, yeah, maybe there's somebody who knows her better.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just so well built over this issue and the last that like it makes so much sense, but also it sounds like neither of us totally expected that character to show up in this book.
And then, if you're keeping score, next week we get Marauders and Cable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to be pretty quick with Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood, number 3. All 3 of these stories I really dug. We had 32 Warriors and a Broken Heart, written by John Ridley with art by Jorge Fornes. Clayton Cowles lettered all 3 of these. This takes one of my least favorite Wolverine story types. There are basically two ways to lose me in Wolverine. You lose me by just digging so deep into the Weapon X Special Ops Mind Wipe stuff.
Right. Which
the last issue of Wolverine did really effectively in a way I loved.
Yep.
Or you lose me by doing the, white guy goes to Japan and becomes samurai storyline, which this does really, really well. John Ridley can write a damn good comic. If we've learned anything so far in the last couple of months, it's that John Ridley is great at what he does, and what he does is very nice.
I love that. That's beautiful.
This is about Wolverine and his wife.
Mariko.
Thank you. Having to fight off a bunch of warriors to save I think it's her niece who they adopted. And then both kind of started dealing with their own shit and sent off to boarding school from the Silver Samurai. And I don't want to say anything more than that about it, but it is a really, really beautiful story. Both in its writing and in Jorge Fornes's art. Oh my god. I love Jorge Fornes. The second one is called Burn. This was written by Donny Cates with art by Chris Bacalo. Cosmic Ghost Rider has gone back in time to visit a bar on the night of what in the future of his timeline, or his past, but Wolverine's future, right? Wolverine has told at game night the story of an epic fight with Juggernaut so many times that Frank has to just come watch it. And in coming to watch it, he totally fucks it up because he's Frank Castle. So it's more Cosmic Ghost Rider, but it's also fun, and we both love Chris Bacalo's art. So, no surprises there. Gorgeous. The last story is called Red Planet Blues. This is written by Jed McKay with art by Jesus Saiz. Wolverine bums a ride with Magic to Mars. Magic does not stick around for the whole thing because, well, she's busy and everyone needs her to teleport them everywhere. But an AIM offshoot called MAME, the Mars Advanced Idea Mechanics,
oh my god,
is trying to start a new human colony on Mars that is very, I'm going to say, libertarian software engineer black and white. We will have all of these processes and procedures, and everything will work exactly this way, like clockwork, and we will be the ideal version of humanity. And just to make sure that's true, we're going to destroy Earth. So Wolverine has to stop them. It's just fun. It's a fun, Wolverine beats up some idiots story.
Yeah.
They've got a big robot, it blinds him, and he's got to figure out how to fight if he can't see it, or it's also stealth so he can't smell it or hear it. And then he brings Magic a souvenir when she shows up half an hour later to pick him back up as scheduled. All of these were fun. This continues to be some really great short storytelling.
Okay.
One last book. We told you guys up front this was going to be a long, jam-packed episode. We had preview copy of Savage #1 from Valiant this week. This is written by Max Bemis with art by Nathan Stockman, colors by Triona Farrell, and letters by Hassan Atzman Elhau. And we've talked about some of Max Bemis's writing before. He did a Moon Knight arc that we really dug.
Yep.
He also writes Heavy, which came out this week and which will be in Is It Still Good? I like his writing a lot. Nathan Stockman I know from Ninja Turtles, Triona Farrell from a bunch of stuff. Hassan Otsman Elhau I know from lettering like so many of the best comics of the last couple of years, and also his comics journalism work. So this is like on paper a no-brainer to me in terms of its creative team.
Yep.
And I really dug it. It feels very different from anything else Valiant I've read. I've liked a lot of what Valiant has put out the last couple of years, but this does not feel like you need to know continuity in the way that a lot of their other books can feel.
Right.
Even if it's just like
to be
a
fair, was part
history
of the design of Valiant. Right.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
I just think there's a lower barrier to entry here.
Yep.
Than there will be for other books potentially.
Sure.
So Savage is basically a Tarzan style character. He's this kid from England who he and his parents were dropped into, in this case it's a parallel world, an alternate world full of dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs kill his parents, so he becomes like the world's foremost dinosaur hunter and gets vengeance for his parents, and all of that is explained and all of that has happened before this book ever starts. He is now back in London, and his brother, who is clearly, the sort of asshole who wants to just cultivate influencers and like take a cut of their profits, is trying to position him as a social media influencer. And all Savage wants to do is go back to the jungle and hunt dinosaurs, because that's what he really loves. He does not enjoy this whole let's be in a costume dancing on a reality show just to be unmasked after we've danced. Or let's do commercials for whatever. And then dinosaurs show up, and he goes to fight them, and is much, much happier. And that's like, I won't spoil kind of that becomes the hook of where the rest of this series will go. But I love the premise for this so much of just like, here is a very like classically modeled pulp character dealing with all of the kind of most frustrating elements of contemporary society and like having to navigate that. It's fish out of water. Like it's a kind of storytelling that goes back to pulp too, and I recognize that, but it feels really fun and really well lived in here. I think the art style, which is very like cartoony, exaggerated, also feels really different from a lot of Valiant stuff. Which again, I'm mentioning not because I haven't enjoyed other Valiant books, but because I think it's an easy place to kind of get into that line and sort of get a foothold reading it. It's a lot of fun. Brian, do you have anything else before we go to Is It Still Good?
Nothing else before we get it.
Okay. On the bright side, actually we've covered most things, so Is It Still Good? It will be nice and fast. Let's start with Rorschach number 5, Brian.
More investigation, and our investigator tells it like it is.
The worst art taste and the biggest comedian button. A character's taste in art. The art in the book.
Correct, yes. I was going to say, let's be clear there.
Love me some hard-hit forness.
Yes.
Commanders in Crisis number 5, Brian.
We see the fallout of the team falling apart. And,
the amazing... Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say, and what they're each kind of up to going forward.
The Amazing Spider-Man number 59, Brian.
Maybe Martin Lee has learned his lesson after all.
Eternals number 2. As it turns out, there are ways to make an omniscient third-person narrator also an unreliable narrator. And this is one of the best of those ways.
Oh boy.
I went into this book with no expectations, but it is quickly becoming one of the things I look forward to the most.
Yeah.
Taskmaster number 3. Taskmaster has moved on to Korea. He is continuing with his attempt to learn the body language of various super spies who he needs to help Nick Fury investigate Maria Hill's murder. And, one, never take genetic modifications from Taskmaster if offered. And 2, if you're going to borrow an Ant-Man Pym particle rig from Nick Fury, make sure he gives you one that works.
Oops.
Love that book. Heavy, number 5. This is the other Max Bemis book this week. This ends our first arc, and our team of heavies gets its newest member, which is something that has made me very excited for arc 2. I'm just going to put it that way.
Okay.
And then finally, Wasted Space, number 19. Billy remains just the biggest asshole in the universe, except for, God. So, the second biggest. That really was quick. Okay.
It was, yeah.
But that's not all, folks. If you listened last week, you may recall I committed myself to a Longbox book report.
It's Longbox book report. It's Longbox book report.
And as it turns out, when I predicted last week what this book would be, I was right. It is a hard knock life. This is Marvel Super Special, number 23, the comic book adaptation of the movie adaptation of the musical adaptation of the comic strip, Annie. This was adapted by Tom DeFalco, penciled by Win Mortimer, inked by Vince Colletta, colored by George Roussos and Marie Severin. And the backup material, the articles, or the back matter, the articles were written by David Anthony Kraft. If you had to have me name a short list of musicals that I never had to hear again, it would include the following: Godspell, Annie, Dear Evan Hansen, Pippin. I will say this was preferable to watching Annie.
That's high praise.
Leapin' Lizards.
Like high praise, like leaping over a stick. That was a hard part to beat.
I mean, okay, I actually do have good things to say about this. And there is something about reading this in comic book format that has made some weird connections in my head that does have me rethinking, well, what is workable about Annie? First, like, the writing in this, which is, I'm sure, working from the script, reads really well.
Okay.
The only sort of weird moments in it are when there is a line that is clearly modeled on a lyric from a song, but to make it sound like language humans would say out loud, the lyric has been rearranged. And I hit it and I'm like, okay, I know this lyric, but I know it backwards, and it's going to take me like an extra second or two to move past this because I have to like reconcile that against, the cognitive dissonance, I guess. Those moments are few and far between, but they are there, and they are, I don't know, as someone who maybe just knows musicals too well, weird. The other glaring thing about this, before I get into what I think is actually really well done, and it's the source materials issue, there are just some wildly problematic depictions of, I can't even tell you if he's supposed to be Indian or generally South Asian, but the character who wears a turban and talks in cliche and does physics-defying magic definitely feels dated in ways that are bad. Those things aside, I actually think the art in this is really charming. It is doing its best not to look like the actual Little Orphan Annie comic strip. And it's clearly doing its best to reference shots from the movie and make it feel familiar in that way, but without, like, wanting to look exactly 100% like that. Like, it splits the uprights of everything it's referencing, I think, really effectively. But here is what reading this as a comic has done to me. One, Daddy Warbucks is the worst, in exactly the same ways that Lex Luthor is the worst. I am now going to pitch you Annie as an alternate universe version of Superman, in which Superman does not exist.
Okay.
Lois Lane is working as Lex Luthor's assistant and decides the best way to rehab his image is to adopt a kid, or at least for a week, borrow an orphan, and that orphan is a young gender-swapped Jimmy Olsen. And Lex goes with this because young gender-swapped Jimmy Olsen, who we're going to call Annie, has convinced Lois Lane to wear her hair down instead of up. And suddenly, Lex Luthor thinks she is attractive. So yes, I will, in fact, take an orphan because I think you're attractive. And I'll never mention this to you again, Lois. Annie is what happens when Mark Russell writes a Depression-era Superman story without Superman in.
Sir, you have done it. That is amazing.
Thanks again to the masked figure who leaves terrifying cutout notes on my doorstep, by which I mean listener Darren, who emails me these challenges periodically.
Boy. Thanks, Darren. That was worth it.
That was.
I mean, for me, especially, because I didn't read it.
I mean, hey, look, recontextualizing Annie in that way may be worth it for me. Who knows? Someday I may have to do Annie. Also, just quick moment of appreciation for Carol Burnett, whose existence is so transcendent that even without this explicitly looking like her and just being the script she was given, I can't not read some of these lines in Carol Burnett's voice.
Yeah.
So indelibly does she own Miss Hannigan.
Indeed.
Okay. This week's books. More Future State. Catwoman #2 from Rom V and Otto Schmidt.
Yep.
Immortal Wonder Woman #2 with a main story by Michael W. Conrad, Becky Cloonan, and Jen Bartel, and a Nubia backup by L.L. McKinney, Aletha Martinez, and Mark Morales. Nightwing #2 by Andrew Constant and Nicholas Scott. Shazam #2 by Tim Sheridan and Eduardo Pansica. Superman Worlds of War #2 with a main feature by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Mikkel Hanin. A Midnighter story by Michael W. Conrad, Becky Cloonan, and Gleb Melnikov. A Black Racer story by Jeremy Adams and Sia Oum. A Mr. Miracle story by Brandon Easton and Valentine Delandro. And The Next Batman #4 with a main story by John Ridley and Laura Braga. A Batgirl story by Vita Ayala and Aneke, and a Gotham City Sirens story by Paula Sevenbergen and Emanuela Lupacino.
Wanting all those.
Yep. Brian, tell me about Truth and Justice #1.
So this is a digital first anthology book that has come out. The first issue is going to have Newsom Vixen in it, and this is basically this is the print version that's coming out this week, collected version. Yeah.
We also have coming out this week The Immortal Hulk Flatline, which is a one-shot written and drawn by Declan Shalvey. I've heard really positive buzz for this from comics types already, so I'm super excited for it. And I also wanted to remind everyone about The Picture of Everything Else #2 by Dan Waters and Kishore Mohan. We talked about the first issue before it was released because we had preview copy, and only briefly talked about it again when it came out. But #2 is out this week, so I, again, give this my highest recommendation. I think this is a great book. Anything else for you, Brian?
Nothing else for me, sir.
In that case, we would like to thank Chase Parker for our intro voiceover. Panelology is a member of the Certain POV network. If you're looking for other cool podcasts about popular culture, go to certainpov.com. We are still on the internet at panelologypodcast.com. You can still support us at patreon.com/panelology. Get merch at bit.ly/panelologymerch, capital P, capital M. Or send us questions and comments at bit.ly/panelologymailbag, capital P, capital M. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian. For 250 episodes, go read comics.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.
Whether it's Squirtle,
Bulbasaur to Pig or even Oshawott, everyone remembers their first starter Pokemon. For 25 years, the Pokemon franchise has been delighting children and adults worldwide. February 27th is Pokemon Day, and in honor of this prolific 25th anniversary, your friends at Certain Point of View want to give you an ultimate anniversary crossover. Starting with Saturday Morning Confidential, Let's Rewatch, another past podcast, the Serial Killer Radio Hour, and Fun and Games with Matt and Jeff will bring you an ultimate crossover event of your favorite Certain POV hosts as well as guests from outside the network. Join us for nostalgia over movies, TV, music, and the games that have inspired generations of gamers. We will even be joined by Pokemon voice actress Erica Schroeder and talk about her over 400 episodes on the series voicing some of your favorite Pokemon. So don't forget, check out certainpov.com for all of our crossover events starting February 26th on Saturday Morning Confidential and Let's Rewatch, and continuing through March 5th. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform because it's time to catch 'em all